welcome and welcome back to the United Mates Football Podcast. I'm one of your hosts, Keitel, and I'm joined here in our hometown of London for the first time in the history of this podcast by my co-host, Joe. Typically, this is an international affair, but I'm in England for one of our best mates stag do's. So we'll see how this goes with Joe and I recording sat right next to each other rather than thousands of miles apart. As usual, we do have a very special guest that we're extremely excited to have on the call with us. During his playing days, he competed at every level of the Football League, including a spell that saw him grace the Premier League with Bournemouth. These days, cherries aren't the only fruit he's passionate about. Self-dubbed the Foodie Footballer, he's an online health coach, personal trainer, and nutrition advisor specializing in athletic performance. We welcome Marc Pugh to the United Mates Football Podcast. Marc, thank you very much for joining us. It's a pleasure to have you on the pod. And how's it going, mate?
Yeah, I'm really well, thank you. No, thank you for having me. I'm looking forward to the chat. And yeah, I've heard great things about you both.
Well, that's nice of you to say. Hopefully we can live up to that reputation. The pleasure is all ours. Joe, it's a bit weird being in the same room. Yeah, I'd say surreal is one way to put it. At this point of the podcast, as you'd know, I'd typically have a go at Spurs, but I'm not protected by an ocean in between us like usual. Otherwise, what a quality stag weekend that was up in Sheffield. Thankfully, you might hear a bit of hoarseness in my throat, but I've just about got that back. Shouting in clubs is what did it for me. But what about you, mate? How's it going?
Yeah, I'm feeling good. My throat's actually quite sore now. I haven't lost my voice, but, clearly a little shouting and other stuff, I think, as well, on the stag do over the weekend. And Tottenham even drew against Liverpool, so that was okay. Just got to beat you now and then hope you mess up at some point. But yeah, no, it's good to have Kai in the same room as me, and I'm obviously excited to be interviewing Marc. So Marc, when we have guests on our podcast, we always start with an icebreaker question. So we typically we just go onto people's social media and we find something. So we've done that for you. We had to go back a few years, actually. We've gone back 8 years to find a picture of when I believe you had to use a Peppa Pig plaster for a blister on your foot.
Oh, lovely.
Yeah.
I remember that one.
There you go, yeah, the famous Peppa plaster. But in honor of Peppa Pig, today's icebreaker question is what is your favorite cartoon animal? But we'll give you a bit of time to think about that. Kai, I guess I'll ask you first whilst Marc thinks about his favorite cartoon animal. What's yours?
So I remember seeing this one in the movie theaters as a child. It was from The Emperor's New Groove. Emperor Cusco, he's a llama played by David Spade, and it holds up. Honestly, I think I could watch that movie today and I would still be laughing a lot out loud. It's a good one. So I'm going to have to go for Emperor Cusco the llama from The Emperor's New Groove. But how about you, Joe? Favorite cartoon animal?
I'd probably go with Brian Griffin from Family Guy. He's a funny dog. Seth MacFarlane, it's his own voice.
Talk about that one.
Yeah. Quite an inappropriate dog, but very funny. So yeah, I think I'll go with him. Marc, what about you? Do you have a favourite cartoon animal?
I'd have to go for. I've got a few. I've got a few, but there's. I don't know if you've ever seen Tangled.
Oh, I think I actually probably shouldn't.
Yeah,
but I think I might have done. Yeah.
Flynn Rider. He's got some great banter. So Flynn Rider. If you've never seen Tangled, I've watched it many a times with my two girls, and yeah, he's got a bit of banter about him. So yeah, Flynn Rider, I'd say.
Flynn Rider, there you go. I haven't seen that one, but I'll add it to my list. On from our favorite cartoon animals, we are actually going to chat a bit about football today. When we get guests on the podcast, we always like to start by getting a bit of a flavor for what it is in their background, in their childhood, that sort of pushed them towards football in the first place, what caught their attention about the beautiful game, what made them fall in love with it. So we kind of call it the football origin story question, so to speak. So Marc, from your childhood, could you tell us a bit about any memories of playing football at an early age, watching football at an early age, supporting a team? How did you fall in love with the beautiful game?
From a young age, really. I was 4 years old when I got my first football kit, and I joined a soccer school, and it just taught us the basics, turning. I've been known for the Cruyff turn throughout my playing career. I scored a few goals by
U-turn.
yeah, the Pugh turn. But yeah, I started at 4 years old and I just loved it. My parents loved football and it was a big part of my life. I think the key is when you're young, just to enjoy it. I played Sunday League football, grassroots football until I was 13, 14. And I believe if you're good enough, the right person will spot you and give you an opportunity. And I got the opportunity to join Burnley from the age of 15, and that's where I did my YTS, my scholarship. And football, like I said, it's always been a big part of me, and I just love playing in front of fans. There's no greater joy, and putting smiles on people's faces and winning games. I think I've had a winning mentality from a young age, and that inspired me to be a professional footballer.
Fantastic. No, it's always good to be able to put on a show and enjoy playing the game as well. That's so important. But you mentioned the fact that you started off at Burnley, Mark, and obviously when you were at Burnley, you did make the bench a couple of times, but after a couple of loans, I think as well, to Kidderminster, unfortunately at that stage in your career, you were released by them. And I know you have sort of said that retrospectively it was a blessing in disguise, but looking back at that time, being as objective as you can, do you think you were deserving of a contract, or actually, as hard as it to say, did Burnley make the right decision given how you were as a player at that time?
I believe everything happens for a reason, and I wouldn't have had the career I've had today if I wouldn't have dealt, had that setback from a young age, because I think it really does toughen you up. In my final season with Burnley in reserve and youth team football, I scored 27 goals in 14 games, which is good statistics. Wow. And I think that's why it was quite hard to take at the time. I was a Burnley fan as well. I was performing really well, but I wasn't really getting any opportunities to train with the first team. So I had to have an honest conversation with the first team manager at the time, which was Steve Cottrell, and he told me I wasn't good enough. And I think that's fuel on the fire. You just want to, you can use that one way or another. And I used it in a positive manner. I thought, right, I'll prove you wrong. I'll go on to make, a success out of this. I want to be a professional footballer. I want to play in the Premier League. And I think positive self-talk and having that belief in yourself, through adversity, when things don't go your way, as I always say in football, never get too high with the high, too low with the lows, and just do what you believe in and keep pushing. And I believe you'll achieve your goal in the end.
Talent goes a long way, but having a good head on your shoulders is kind of the make or break factor, I reckon, on many levels. So you had both the talent and, the setback, like you said, but it was a learning experience that you used to add fuel to the fire as well, as you mentioned. For this next question, I've sort of got my Arsenal supporters cap on, so I hope you don't mind indulging me as we're taking a bit of a step away from your own career. But tangentially at Burnley, you had quite a few big names as teammates, the likes of Adi Akinbaye, Kyle Lafferty, Phil Bardsley, one of our former guests, Paul McVeigh, even a Premier League winner in Nathan Dyer were some of those guys. Former gunner, another one of your teammates at the time, Danny Carbassiun, I think he had a brief spell with Burnley, was another one of your teammates. As you'll know, he went through hell with injuries and had to prematurely retire from the game not long after leaving Burnley. So Mark, from your perspective as an ex-player and as a fitness fanatic in particular, how much of any player's career and longevity in the game comes down to luck versus how much of it is a question of actively trying to keep yourself as fit as possible? We all have, different strengths and weaknesses, but some players like Carbassiun, for instance, their bodies seem to give up on them. What's your take on this situation and preserving any football career in general?
Yeah, I think you've got to give yourself every possible opportunity to perform optimally, and improving the small percentages on a daily basis, such as, your nutrition, your recovery, your gym work. It all adds up, whether you're doing extras after training, your ice baths, your massages, all these small percentages really do add up to make it, the best athlete. And yeah, you can get a little bit unlucky if you turn, strangely and you do your ACL or whatever it may be, you might get that unlucky break. It's how you deal with that and how you come back. I've played with players such as Callum Wilson. He's done both ACLs in both knees, and look at the heights he's reached. He's playing for Newcastle in the Premier League and he's bounced back. Tyrone Mings done his ACL. Lewis Cook, again, had tough injuries, but he's still, he did his gym work. He got himself back to the level he can. And he's just been promoted to the Premier League with Bournemouth again. And, it's just having the right mentality on a daily basis and doing everything you can. Control the controllables. Yeah, sometimes are a little bit unlucky with injuries. Like you mentioned, Danny Kabasian, a great professional, worked hard, lovely lad. I got on really well with Danny, and he was so unfortunate with the injuries he had. And he did live his life right. From what I'm aware of, I don't know what he did away from the game, because he was a little bit older than me, and I was, I didn't spend too much time with him away from the game. But as far as I'm concerned, he just got a little bit unlucky. But like I said, it's down to you at the end, Dave. You want it bad enough, you'll bounce back and make it in the end.
Yeah, I mean, as you said, mentality is so important, both from bouncing back from injuries, but also, I guess, going back to your career, giving yourself the opportunity to kind of go back up the leagues. Because as we spoke about earlier, you were released from Burnley and then you go to Bury and play there for a couple of years. You then go and play for Shrewsbury and go on loan to Luton with Nick Harford, who was another guy we've interviewed in the past, and then actually end up at Hereford, of course, a big rival of Shrewsbury in many ways. But I know when you went to Hereford, Mark, one of the things you said was that you kind of realised that you had to knuckle down at that point in your career because it could be your last opportunity. And look, obviously, that first full season at Hereford went really well. You scored a load of goals, and that really provided the springboard for you to move up the leagues and move up in your development as a player. So from a mentality perspective, in that season at Hereford, what were you doing anything differently to what you'd done prior to your career? Was there a change in mentality for you?
No, I was showing grit and determination because I knew that was a make or break. I had a season contract with Hereford when I was 21, 22, going into my third year with Shrewsbury. There was a change of manager again, and I wasn't in his plans. I told her I wasn't good enough again. And at the time, I was on my honeymoon. And obviously, your missus at the time, she's like, oh, where do we go from here? And I just said, I remember saying to her, look, I'll play in the Premier League. I'll prove these people wrong. And I think positive self-talk, affirmations, always believe in yourself, having confidence in your own ability, it really does take you a long way. And, a few days later, I got a phone call off Hereford. They wanted to offer me a year contract. And I believe, if you've got that positive mindset, good things come to you. And I just thought, I'm going to really knuckle down here. I'm going to get myself right. I'm going to fuel properly. I'm going to work hard. And again, you can have the best game in the world, but at the end of the day, if you're scoring goals and you're coming up on, Soccer Saturday, whatever it may be, you get noticed. And in that season, I scored 2 in the home fixture against Bournemouth, and I scored 1 in the away fixture. Bournemouth took a liking to me, and spent 9 amazing years after Hereford with Bournemouth.
You hear it a lot, the kind of phrase or the word thrown around these days in particular. I feel like I hear it a lot, manifestation and manifesting and having that belief in yourself and really convincing yourself that this will come true, this will happen. Obviously, there's a lot of hard work that goes into it behind the scenes. It's not just going to bed at night and wishing, but you pulled it off. And, speaking of Bournemouth, after such a fantastic season at Hereford, you would join Bournemouth in League One. And that's the club, as you mentioned, nine brilliant years, the club where you would spend the longest spell of your career and where you were an instrumental part of a meteoric rise from League One into the Championship and then into the Premier League. As you said, you would end up playing in the Premier League. Given that your stock had never been higher than after that first permanent season at Hereford as the top scorer, what was it about Bournemouth that made you decide to join them? Presumably you had a few offers. So obviously, it was a great decision, but why did Bournemouth feel like the right next step for you at that time?
Strangely enough, I didn't have any other offers. But no, I mean, Hereford did want to keep me. They offered me another year contract, but I wanted a little bit of security. I just got married and, obviously I wanted to take it to the next level. Bournemouth played lovely football under Eddie Howe. They offered me a 3-year contract. It was a big move because I'm a northern boy and it was right on the south coast, 5.5, 6 hours away from family. But no, my wife was really supportive and I had a good feeling about Bournemouth. And when I met Eddie Howe and Jason Tindall, we just had that instant connection. I loved the way he wanted to play, his philosophy, his work ethic, his aura, everything about him I loved. And I believe he would get the best out of me. And, you know, I have a faith. Like I said, I believe everything happens for a reason. And, you know, just trying to, I like to write down my, you know, my visions, you know, a lot of people like to, you know, look at them every day, and like in the evenings, I like to plan out my day. And I did that with my career, really. You know, I really did. I really was big for self-talk, and yeah, it just clicked. And yeah, there was a few ups and downs along the way, but you're going to get to your destination eventually through hard work. And one of my quotes that I live by, I put it behind my mirror, and I read it every day, is hard work beats talent when talent doesn't work hard. And that's all I've stuck by.
Well, I mean, it worked, because obviously you ended up, you started in League One with Bournemouth, and you ended up in the Premier League a few years later. I mean, look, in the first couple of years at Bournemouth, you were the top scorer there. You then, you know, played an integral role throughout that whole journey that ultimately led to Bournemouth being in the Premier League. They obviously went down a couple of years, but are back up again now. But I guess now, Mark, when you look back at that 9-year journey at Bournemouth, obviously you said earlier on in this interview that you'd said quite, you know, you'd manifested that you would play in the Premier League one day. That was a goal of yours. But when you look back at the journey versus that, well, yeah. So I guess my question is, do you have more pride in the fact that you were there from the beginning at League One all the way to the Premier League? Or actually, was it just that first appearance in the Premier League that was just unlike anything else in your career and was almost the proudest moment?
I think it was special because I always dreamt as a boy that I wanted to test myself against world-class players. And because I'd been through so much, released twice, told it wasn't good enough, and you know, I was slowly working my way up the ladder, proving people wrong as I went along. A couple of managers that obviously released me when I got to the Championship, they were assistant managers at, you know, some of the clubs I played at, and they pulled me and said, look, I was completely wrong, which that was great satisfaction to me. I absolutely buzzed off that. And, you know, I got doubted, you know, went up to the Championship, was told I wasn't good enough for League One, let alone the Championship. And I scored 9 goals in my second season and got a lot of assists as well. But getting to that Premier League, that's the easy part. It's staying there. You know, it's all right getting to the Premier League, but you've not made it. You've never made it. You've got to keep improving as a person, as an individual, as an athlete, and you've got to do everything right, because it's a 10-month grueling season. It's enjoyable. Absolutely love the process, but it is a commitment. It is a sacrifice, and you've got to do everything right to be successful. And as an athlete, you've got to have that winning mentality. And over the course of my, you know, the 18 pre-seasons I had in football, I just wanted to win. I wanted to get to the Premier League, and I wanted to test myself against the best in the world.
Well, you certainly ended up succeeding at all of the above. During, you know, you've spoken about Eddie Howe as well, but during your time in particular in the Premier League under Eddie Howe with Bournemouth, the club, they really backed him in a big way financially at this point. Obviously, the windfall of money that does come in at that point, and likewise, you know, you might inevitably as a promoted team need to strengthen to remain in the league. You would have seen a number of high profile signings arrive as your new teammates, you know, season after season at this point. Was this maybe the first time in your senior career that you were a bit starstruck by the names and faces of players that you found yourself training alongside every day? And if so, who excited you the most when they showed up at Dean Court?
I think when you're in the moment, as I always say in football, you've got to be in the moment. You've got to concentrate on yourself and your performances, and you can't be, you know, overwhelmed, you know, starstruck. But yeah, you did have that mutual respect from, you know, your likes of Jack Wilshere. So much ability, so much promise. Was really unlucky with injuries. You know, if he'd have stayed injury free throughout most of his career, there's no doubt he'd be playing for England because he had so much ability. And you know, your likes of Nathan Ake, unbelievable talent. You know, he was a little bit unknown for me when he came to Bournemouth. He'd not played much football for Chelsea. He came in and he was just an all-round great athlete, great lad. You know, never got too big for his boots, and now he's playing for Man City. And you know, he's an unbelievable professional. Again, Jermaine Defoe. He's just, you know, his record speaks for himself. But it's when after a couple of weeks of meeting him, I knew why he was there, because he did everything right. He ate well, he recovered well, he slept well, he did his extras after training, whether it be finishing. If he's not in the team, he'll do his extra runs. He just lived his life right. So you look at them for inspiration and motivation, and it'd be wrong of you not to ask questions. How, why, how did you reach the heights you got to? Because there's no special formula to it. It's living your life right, and your daily habits need to be bang on.
Some great names, obviously, as an Arsenal fan. It was sad to see Jack potentially not live up to at least being able to play as many consistent games at my club as I would have liked. A mercurial talent. It was nice of you to mention Jermaine Defoe, as Joe's a Spurs fan.
Always love to hear his name.
He's class. He's class. I mean,
he is, even as an Arsenal supporter.
He's just incredible. He's such a great guy, and like I said, he's the ultimate professional. That's why he was scoring goals at 38, 39 for Rangers, and I'm surprised he retired, because he was in great shape.
He could, I'm sure, if he wanted to be still out there, he'd probably do it. Otherwise, another one of your teammates who, likewise, if we want to talk about bad luck or that doesn't even do this justice, but David Brooks let the Premier League alight at moments in his earlier days with Bournemouth, got a bad injury as well, and then obviously on top of that, he's thankfully recently, I think, received the all clear, but he's been through more than anyone could possibly imagine. Is he someone you've remained in touch with? Do you have confidence in him bouncing back and salvaging what he was on his way to doing, which was being a fantastic Premier League footballer?
He's an incredible talent, and he's such a lovely lad as well. He wants to do well, and I'm just, thank God he is okay, and he's recovering well now. It's going to take him a long time. I think, the fans and the public need to just let him, crack on with his fitness, his recovery, and it's going to take him time to get back to where he knows he can be. But I have no doubt, with the right mindset, fueling himself correctly with the right nutrition, and having people around him to support him, he will get back to where he wants to be, because undoubted talent. And he's, I spoke to him probably about 6-7 weeks ago now, whilst he was still having treatment. I was down in Bournemouth doing nutrition with the development squad, and we had a good catch up, and yes, so pleased for him, and like you say, great talent, and he can be anything he wants to be if he can get back there.
Yeah, I mean, he's a fantastic footballer, and it's just great that his health is on the up now, but hopefully we'll see him, doing his thing on the pitch sooner rather than later. But going back to your time in the Premier League, Mark, obviously you were saying earlier that the hard work essentially starts once you get promoted, because you have to then stay up, and that's when you're playing on a weekly basis against literally the best players in the world. So once you made that step up to the Premier League, I know throughout your career, you've had a positive attitude and a strong routine that kind of guided you along, but was there anything that changed once you were in the Premier League in terms of the way you trained, or the way that Eddie Howe and the coaching team would sort of approach things? What were the main differences for you as a player once you reached the Premier League?
I mean, the intensity levels, they had to be a given. You need to, training from the Championship, especially second season, leading into the Premier League, training was much more intense. Mentally, physically, emotionally, you had to be ready for what came. And the big difference with the Premier League is strikers get 1 and 2 chances, and they'll finish them. They're more clinical. So you've got to be defensively more structured in your shape, and you've got to work harder off the ball, because you're going to spend long periods without the ball, especially against your likes of City, Tottenham, Arsenal, Liverpool, Chelsea. They have long spells of possession, so you need to be fit. And we had some grueling pre-seasons. Obviously, they were based around the ball. That's what I loved about Eddie Howe. It was all specific to the game. But every pre-season's a killer. As a player, you've just got to be ready for it. And I think the key is to get through pre-season, do your gym work, do your extras, make sure you're recovering properly, because to get the best out of your season, you've got to be fit for out pre-season. You can't be getting injuries, because it's tough to catch up. You're constantly playing catch up. And that Premier League season, it was really important that our squad got through it, because we knew we had a tough ask. We were favourites to go down, but we proved everyone wrong. We proved the doubters wrong, and I think that came through. The dressing room. We had a great cohesion. We had great characters, and most of that team had never even stepped foot in the Premier League, so they had a point to prove, and we wanted it, for ourselves, for our families. It's life-changing financially. So whatever your goal is as an individual, go out onto that field and give your all for the fans, for yourself and for your family.
Yeah, well, like you said, you certainly did that, and certainly surprised a few people. I think they're probably back in 2015 when you went up? I think, 2015. Yeah. Back then, probably, I imagine amongst the bookies, Bournemouth would have been one of the favourites to go down, but obviously Bournemouth stayed in the Premier League for a number of years and are back, which is great. But going back, I suppose, especially in that maybe that first season when you were playing in the Premier League, your first year in the Premier League, was there a particularly special Premier League ground that you played at that you enjoyed? And if so, why? What was there? Was there any games in particular that stand out for you from that first year?
Yeah, definitely. My first Premier League goal against West Ham. You'll be pleased about this, actually. But, not just because of the goal. I don't know about you, whether you've ever been to Upton Park, but the atmosphere was incredible. It was one of the best I've played in the Premier League, and I played at the Etihad, I played at Old Trafford, played at Anfield. But throughout the game, the atmosphere was amazing, and to score my first Premier League goal coming off the bench, and it was our first Premier League win as well. We won 4-3. That was a real special memory for me. I knew I'd arrived, and I knew, I belonged there, and I knew I could mix it with the best. So I used that as a platform to build, and I grew into the season, started playing better, performing better, and gaining more confidence with that. So that's a standout game for me.
Yeah, very special moment, and a place that no one's ever going to score another goal at again, because obviously West Ham, they don't play there anymore. You speak about atmospheres. I know the West Ham fans have had a hard time transitioning from Upton Park to the new London Olympic Stadium. So that I can only imagine, and against West Ham in particular, would have been something that I think Joe and I would have enjoyed had we been the ones putting the ball in the back of the net. On your performances at this point in your career, you might call it your prime from a kind of age point, and then obviously the quality that you're having to match up against and be able to perform against week in, week out in the Premier League. But do you ever think back that maybe there was another level even to your game that you could have reached? Did you have serious aspirations of playing for England, for instance?
Yeah, it was always in the back of my mind, and you've got to set your goals big. Obviously, I didn't reach that goal, but when I look back, I knew I'd give everything. If you can look back and you've tried everything, and you've worked hard, you've lived your lifestyle right, and you go out on the training field, you do your extras, and you don't reach that goal, then that's all you can ask. So I'd love to have played for England, don't get me wrong, and no goal's too big. You've got to dream big, but that wasn't to be. I was just delighted I got to play in the Premier League and mix it with the best. But that'd have been lovely. I'm not going to lie. For sure.
Yeah, well, it's amazing that can almost be a regret that it never happened. Shows a career's pretty good if that's the one thing you didn't manage to tick off. But obviously, you had your 9 years at Bournemouth, and then you would go on to play for Hull for a bit and QPR, and even return back to Shrewsbury just before you hung up your boots. But we're going to talk now a bit about what you're up to these days with, of course, the Foodie Footballer account that you have on Instagram, which obviously is a fantastic account, and you share all these wonderful meals. It's very bright and colourful accounts, which is great. But obviously the big thing about the Foodie Footballer is having a focus on nutrition and diet, and effectively doing things the right way. So obviously in football now, nutrition and diet is incredibly important. And I'd say more or less everybody at the top of the game has to take it seriously in order to remain at the top of the game. Obviously, you've spoken about from a fitness perspective as well, making sure you do your extras and all of that, in addition to the nutrition side of things. But for you, I know you've said that it's been important to you. I mean, at what stage in your career did you really realize that nutrition and diet and doing things right was the way forward? Was that just something that came to you from a young age, or was there a light bulb moment at some point along the way?
Yeah, so I look back to my early days where I spent a lot of time in League One and League Two, and I thought I was eating healthily, but in reality, I wasn't eating as well as I should have done. I wasn't fueling my body properly for games. I was getting towards 70, 75 minutes. I was getting a little bit tired and I weren't performing well for the last 15, 20 minutes of games. So I started to study nutrition a lot, especially when we got promoted to the Championship, because I knew the athleticism of players, the physicality was a lot, better. The tempo was a lot quicker. So I did a qualification in nutrition at the age of 26. Was seeing the benefits in my performance. I could go 90 minutes. I was running 12 to 13k quite comfortably, feeling sharp, feeling strong. I was scoring a lot of my goals in the last 15, 20 minutes when defenders were getting tired. So fueling optimal is important, but I always speak to athletes now and I'm like, yeah, focus on fueling properly, but don't fuel for that one performance, fuel for the season, because it's all right, fueling for the performance and filling your body full of sugar, but that's going to have a negative effect on your recovery as well and your sleep. So you're not going to recover properly, and that's how you pick up injuries. So making sure you provide the body with, your complex carbs, long sustained energy carbs, that kind of thing is really important. Every individual is different, but that really did work for me. And then again, I began to do more qualifications. The most recent one I did was in athletic performance and weight management. So yeah, I specialize in that at the moment now. So it's really it's becoming more and more popular in football. It wasn't spoken about so much when I was younger, but I noticed a massive change in my performances. Again, I tried different things, different strategies, and in the Premier League, I remember the game against Man City. I run 13.7k, which is a hell of a distance. I only touched the ball 11 times because they passed us off the park. But no, I just felt like I could run a lot longer. I was recovering better. I was sleeping better, and yeah, it just made my overall mood. I've always been a happy person. I've always been a positive person, but I think it makes you happy as well, the healthier you feel.
It's always impressive when you can run more kilometers than touches you have in a game. Probably a good thing you didn't touch the ball more in that one, I guess. Otherwise, you would have really had to do some serious running. Yeah, still be going today. But you mentioned as well, being able to take advantage of opposition tiring towards the end of games, and then obviously from a longer term perspective, balancing that out over the course of a season. Another, high profile player that is enjoying his career still at an older age is Cristiano Ronaldo back in the Premier League. That guy clearly takes care of himself. And you mentioned as well, just the nutrition and the preparation becoming more of a staple of the preparation that these top players go through. Do you foresee the average career just continuing to last longer and longer? Is Latan's still going? There's a lot of these guys that are pushing it, but as we move towards the future, is that going to be more of a normality?
I think so. I think nutrition's a massive part, and you look at Cristiano, Zlatan, Lewandowski, all these Messi. They all live the life right, and the body composition, everything is just spot on. And yeah, they've got all the money in the world to hire the nutritionists and that kind of thing. So that helps. But educating yourself, there's so much information available. There's so many knowledgeable people. I always say surround yourself with positive and more knowledgeable people than yourself, and learn and develop as an individual. And if you're, putting all aspects in your life together like a jigsaw puzzle, and you're making the right decisions, you've got good habits, you live your life right, your routine's good, then you're going to be, obviously, we're not all going to reach to heights of Cristiano Ronaldo, but it's something we can aspire to and something we can try and, push ourselves towards. So it's massive. I mean, like I said, it changed me completely, the way I feel about nutrition when I started implementing it in my daily life. And I swear by it to this day. I could probably play football till I was, 45 years old if I wanted to. But again, I had this passion for life to help others when it comes to nutrition. And in football, as you get a little bit older, it happened to me, and I wasn't valued as much by other clubs, and I felt mentally and physically like I could play in the Championship, but I didn't get any offers in the Championship, and I didn't really want to do the travelling anymore for League One, League Two. I wanted to dedicate a little bit more time to my kids, my wife, and have a little bit more flexibility to my life. And I've fell into what I'm doing, and I'm absolutely loving it.
If you ever feel like coming out of retirement, I'd love to see you over in the stateside where I'm at, maybe the Galaxy or LAFC in my hometown these days. Although from a traveling perspective, that it's a pretty big country, so you probably we might not be able to spend as much time with the family. So otherwise, you touched on it as well, kind of transitioning from playing into the nutrition and the kind of educational role that you can provide on that side of things to players and to aspiring athletes and to whoever it is that you're coaching. How rewarding has this part of your life as a health coach been, and what do you enjoy the most about your career these days?
Yeah, it's really rewarding. I mean, I love helping people. I love doing something to have a positive impact on other people's lives, because I know how good it makes you feel to, feel strong, feel like you're getting something out of your day, you're eating well, you're getting some exercise in, you're sleeping well. If you're happy with your life, then you're going to be successful, whether you're, an athlete, a bank manager, someone who works in an office. If you're feeling good going to work, you're going to be in the right mental state, and you're going to perform optimally at your job. So I think it's really important that you do live a healthy lifestyle. So no, it's so rewarding, and you're only as good as your client, though. I think it's really important that you hold your clients accountable, and at the end of the day, you want them to see progression, and that's a bit I love. I love it when someone messages me saying, "Oh, you made a difference in my life," because it's as good as score. It's as close as it gets to scoring a goal in front of fans. It's my why, and it's what I love. And don't get me wrong, I love scoring goals, and I play five-a-side 3 times a week still to get my football fix. But it is special. It is special.
Fantastic. Well, yeah, no, helping people is a wonderful thing, and like you said, the skills that you can offer people, they're not just football related; they can be applicable to anyone really in life. But that is actually where we're going to end this today, Mark. So before I say thank you to you, actually, a big thank you to Keitel. Thanks for flying to London. It wasn't to see me, to see our friend, but we had a great time, and it was good to hang out in person and doing one of these podcasts. And then obviously a massive thank you to Mark for being such a good guest, and we've really enjoyed chatting to you, Mark. And also for our listeners, it would be great if you could just let them know if you've got any social media accounts that they could perhaps follow you and keep up to date with everything that you're doing.
Yeah, so on Instagram, I'm at the Foodie Footballer, and then obviously my health coach app is Foodie Footballer Fitness, and I'm just trying to think of all of them now. You can find a lot of my free recipes on Cookly Bookly. So if you just Google Marc Pugh Cookly Bookly, I've got a lot of recipes on there. So yeah, I think that's about it. And no, thank you for having me. I'm just thinking back to the first question you asked me. Did you say that this is just randomly? Did you say a cartoon character which is an animal?
Yeah, indeed. You got another one.
And I give you Flynn Rider, who's not even an animal.
I've definitely not seen that movie. Yeah,
I'll have to change that up. Scooby Doo.
Yeah, there we go.
Yeah, there we go. You must have been thinking, what is this guy on about? But no, thank you for having me. And like I say, I've really enjoyed it.
As a owner of 2 dogs, I can get behind that answer for sure. And actually, Joe will know this himself. Growing up, I had a Great Dane. Obviously, Scooby's a Great Dane. So yeah, that's
good old Hercules.
pretty. Yeah, Hercules indeed.
I don't know why my clogs were ticking. I was thinking that much of a good cartoon character. I completely forgot.
We came up with the perfect answer in the end, to be fair. So thanks again, Mark. Congratulations on everything that you are up to as the Foodie Footballer. Best of luck on that journey. I'd say after the stag weekend that Joe and I were on, we could probably use your services.
Just a bit, yeah.
just a bit. As far as our listeners, if you enjoyed the podcast, please do subscribe wherever it is that you like to stream your favorite podcast. Just search for United Mates Football Podcast on Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook. We are at United Mates FP. So give us a follow on those too. And if you do feel like putting any faces to these voices, then you can find us on YouTube. Look for United Mates Football Podcast. Don't forget to subscribe while you're at it. For all of that and more in one place, check out the website. It's unitedmatesfp.com. Until next time, everyone, take care of yourselves and take care of each other. Goodbye.